Welcome to Media Endeavor. Today's guest is Jodie Fiorenza, partner manager at WordPress VIP Automatic. Jodie's journey in web development began unexpectedly in 2011 when she applied for a sales position at a web agency. After spending several years at a leading agencies like Yikes and Web Dev Studios, she now leads WordPress VIP's agency partnership. Jodie is a respectful WordPress community member, speaker, and strategist, sharing her expertise across the industry. Jodie, welcome to Media Endeavor.
Hi, Miki. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that. It's lovely to be here. I'm very excited to talk with you.
All right, thank you. Well, I know you well because we work together very close. Yeah. But for those of the people who might not know you, can you give us a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny. I was talking about this the other day too. It's weird where life will take you sometimes. And I was telling this story that when I was in college, and I remember this so clearly, I was a freshman in college in a communications class. The professor walked in and said, "Have you all heard of this thing called the World Wide Web yet?" And we really hadn't. We knew that email existed. We knew that the military was using something that made files move magically across time and space. But the concept of the World Wide Web was still so foreign. So I always think it's really comical that I ended up in a career in a field that was just starting when I was in college. I could not have planned to be here working in tech when I was entering college. It was not a thing. It was not a choice. So weirdly enough, I studied communications and I studied music. That's what my background was in. And then that journey led me into WordPress via MySpace, because I think that a lot of us got our start with HTML on our MySpace pages. And I took this interest in coding, or what at that time all it meant to me was this basic HTML. And so I started building WordPress sites, and then kind of looked at all of my experience in sales and now creating websites. I'm using air quotes because they were horrendous. I would never show you those original sites that I created. And that led me to start doing sales in the WordPress world. And so I was in agency life for about 12 years doing sales, and then came over to Automatic, which I kind of always knew I wanted to work at Automatic. That was a goal of mine. And I came over to VIP, which is a division of Automatic, to run partnerships now. So my journey was very long and twisted and not a straight line at all to get here.
A lot of people I talk to who are in this industry, because they're kind of accidentally dev into it, or just kind of they were planning on it, but it just end up here. I don't think anyone really planned it. Maybe there are some people that actually planned to be here, but
right.
A lot of people, because I think that makes it more interesting, because you had all the other experience that lead into this. So I think this is why it's so exciting and interesting to see all these different people, because they have so many different backgrounds.
I find that a lot of people who work in tech have some kind of background in the arts, whether it be paint, music, something in the arts has all kind of led us here.
Yeah, that's actually interesting, because some people think that developers don't really have artistic mind, or the people in tech doesn't have artistic mind, but it's actually the opposite.
Total opposite. I think there's so much art in code. First of all, I couldn't do what I see engineers do today. I mean, maybe if I studied and learned it, I could, but to me, it seems like something that's just such a foreign concept. I understand it at a basic level, but being able to do that, what they do, I think is really impressive. But there is such a skill, such an art to it that's so actually beautiful to me. I mean, Automatic always, Matt says code is poetry. And I think that there is a lot of truth in that. There is art everywhere. And every time we go to a meetup or I'm around my colleagues, a band gets started somewhere. Everybody has an instrument. There's karaoke or there's a band, and you kind of see this artistic ability come out in a variety of different ways. Writing too, that's another one.
Yeah,
a lot of people have books or blogs or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's it's a misconception that people think that the technology people are not creative or not artistic, but they're actually both.
Yeah, and I think probably that artistic background is what makes engineers so good at what they do, because you need to understand how to put things together and how shapes work and how all these things kind of fit in this magical pattern. And yeah, that it's always fun to me to listen to what people have done in the past, because you're right. I think a lot of us accidentally stumbled into this career. No, I will say though, the younger generations that I'm seeing coming up now, they have an option. They can choose to go into engineering or code or be a programmer or do those things. They are options now that you can I didn't have that luxury. They exist now. So there are people, I think, who are choosing to take this career path. But I think many of us who have been around for a while, to your point, have stumbled into it, literally.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's probably going to be similar going with the younger generation too. They think that they're starting with the coding or programmer, but they're probably something that kind of morphed into something different too. So
Yes.
it's kind of exciting, but it's different, but we don't know yet. Maybe we do, we don't. But I think it's kind of like an ongoing thing. And I think it's exciting to just kind of be a little more open to doing something that's not exactly what you planned on.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. I mean, I could have never imagined ending up here, but I feel so fortunate because I love what I do so much. So that's kind of cool, right? It's not anything I could have grown up as a little girl and said, I want to do this. And somehow life still directed me to a career that I have a passion about.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into some of the prepared question I had.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that 2011 you applied for sales position. That's how you get started. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when I mentioned kind of I had this background in music and I traveled a lot after college, but at one point I wanted to, in my 20s, or I thought I wanted to settle down a little bit, and bought the house and got the dog and the SUV and did all of those things. Quickly learned that you need to pay for all of that, which was not fun. So my sister said to me, hey, she worked at Verizon. She said, they're hiring. Do you want to come work here? And I said, okay, it's, good job. And I have a lot to take care of now. So I'm going to do this. So I got the job at Verizon and I sold Yellow Page ads, which was wild. And I did it for about 2 years, literally 100 phone calls a day, calling people to place ads in the phone book. And then the internet came along, online listings. And that was one of the reasons I lost my job, which there's irony in that too, which is kind of funny. But it was a brutal job. I would not have recommended it to anyone. It was so hard. There was so much rejection, but I learned everything I could possibly need to know about sales in that career working for Verizon. They put us through rigorous training. I did so many cold calls. I got rejected so many times. I mean, I felt like I came out of that job as a seasoned sales pro and vowed never to go back to sales. So I did everything but. I bartended. Anything you could imagine, because I just did not want to go back into an office, basically. And so life progressed and I was working in the music industry, and I had this musician basically come up to me one day and say, hey, I'm on MySpace. This is where I'm getting, that's at the time, that's where everybody in the music industry kind of built their fan base, was on MySpace. He said, I want something else though. I don't know if MySpace is going to be around forever. What can we do to get me presence on the web that would have some longevity? And so I was Googling. I was literally searching one day and stumbled upon this thing called WordPress. I had never heard of it before. I had no idea what it was. This was probably 2007, 2008. So this was early on.
Oh, yeah.
It just came out and I thought some tutorials online. I downloaded GIMP, which is like Photoshop, but free. It's an open source. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to build a website. That's what I'm going to do now. And again, they were so bad. I would never, if I showed you the first graphic that I made on GIMP, you as a professional would laugh so hard because I used every single special effect. Beveled, yes. Drop shadow, yes. Everyone to the max. They were so bad, but I was so proud of myself that I was creating these things online. And I built a WordPress site and I did these graphics and I was doing all this stuff and I really got interested in what WordPress was doing. And so I started my own blog and I just learned about as much as I could. And the music industry was falling apart because at that point, streaming was becoming really popular and killing what we knew as the traditional music industry. And quite frankly, I was burning out and I didn't know if I had a shift into what the music industry was becoming. And I was looking for a job because I know I needed a job at this point. And I stumbled upon this web development company. They're called Yikes. They actually don't exist anymore. They just recently retired. It was a good story. It was a great story, actually. And so I saw this opening that they were looking for somebody to do sales. And I'm like, well, I have all this experience from Verizon. I could sell anything probably at this point. And I know enough about WordPress to be dangerous. Let me just apply for this. For whatever reason, they met with me and we had this lovely interview and I just connected with them and they took a chance on me. They hired me. And I will always be grateful to them for that, because here are two powerful women who owned their own business in the tech space. And they took a chance at basically an unseasoned professional to come in and help build their business. And for whatever reason, it worked. Like, it just worked. And I worked there for 5 years. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I learned so much about WordPress. That's when I became heavily involved in the WordPress community, and I started going to WordCamps. And then I just, I went to another agency, which was just bigger, and I did, more there, and then ended up at Automatic. But my background in sales and music and tech led me here. And also, I will say, in college, I've written about this before. I worked at a car wash one summer, and I was the person at the end of the line when the car came through that upsold the person to get like their tires done, or like the undercarriage wax, or, a deeper interior clean. And I always say that that was technically my first introduction to sales, because I learned how to sell at this car wash and I made so much money that summer and I worked my butt off. I was like, it just was physical labor. I was drying cars and I was doing like actual detailing inside. But one of the best things I could have ever done.
That's amazing. You have like all this different experience just kind of morph into everything.
Totally random experience. Yeah.
Well, I thought, at least, because I have my note that you actually are a part of WordPress community since 2010, but you're actually going back to 2007. That's just correct. Yeah.
To about 2007. Yeah. And then in, around 2010, 2011, when I was with Yikes, is when I started to really understand the power of the WordPress community. I got to be around it. WordCamp Philly at the time was a very big annual event that was happening. And so I went to my first one of those. In fact, for any of you that know Philadelphia, one of the things that we are very famous for is our soft pretzels. And I was helping to organize that WordCamp Philly. And we got views made, like WordPress pretzels. But they didn't have a W, so they had to use an M. And so we just had to hand them to everybody upside down. This is not an M, this is a W. That was one of my contributions.
Do you have pictures of that? You gotta share pictures with me.
I do. I will get you pictures of the pretzel, the upside down M's. Yes, I will share them with you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Actually, another funny community story, quite honestly, Philadelphia was chosen as the first city to host WordCamp US. This was in 2015. I was on the original organizing team for WordCamp US. And one of my projects on that organizing team was to get the stuffed wapoos made. I don't know if you've ever seen them, right?
Yeah, okay. I had it because they gave it to us, I think, for the people who attended.
Yes, they did.
Raffle or not, because I got it in the mail.
No, it was a gift.
Yeah.
That we gave to all the attendees at WordCamp US. And I worked with a company that was overseas to get these stuffed animals created. So I worked with a company to get these wapoos created. And it was an excruciating process. It took forever. We had so many prototypes. Some of them, I had given a talk on this actually, where I showed the old prototypes. They were so bad. They could not get this wapoo right. And it went all the way up. It was getting so close to the day of WordCamp. And I get a call. Finally, we get it right. We place the order, whatever. I get a call. The WordCamp is on Friday. I get a call on Tuesday of that week from the Department of Homeland Security. I swear to you, this is a true story. They're like, we're at the Philadelphia airport right now. You just got a shipment of stuffed animals, and we can't release these because I didn't know that when you order bulk stuffed animals, you need a toy license broker to be able to do that work, to bring them into the country and sign off, because it could be used as whatever to smuggle stuff into the country. So I was on the phone with the Department of Homeland Security. I'm like, I didn't know that this was a thing. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, yes, I ordered these. They're for an event. Anyway, I had to go down to the airport with a friend, like prove all this stuff, like pretend I knew what a toy broker was, like beg them to let us release all these stuffed animals. This was now the Thursday before the event. They were all taped up in like police tape and everything. And finally, I think it was just the guy at the airport was so sick of me that he was like, just take the boxes. And I had a van and I was with a friend of mine, my old boss, Brad Williams. And we are literally taking the boxes, shoving them in the van. And then we packed the van full of boxes, but there was still more. So we were taking the stuffed animals out of the boxes, stuffing them like in the crevices of the van, any space we could find. And we got in the van and we hightailed it. I mean, Wapoos up to my head as I'm driving this van. We hightailed it out of there so quickly. Got to the venue. It was like 6 p.m. on Thursday, just enough time to have everybody unload these Wapoos and get them ready for the next day. So every time that I look at those stuffed Wapoos, I think about the time that I had to basically pretend I was an international toy broker to the Department of Homeland Security at the Philadelphia airport. It was just like not a normal day.
I gotta find my Wapoo. I know it's like in between my other stuffed animals because I remember getting it. I was like, I didn't know what it was because that it wasn't known yet. So I was like, what is this yellow thing? And I thought it was the mascot.
Yes. The next year, we went to WordCamp EU in Paris, and they had made the stuffed Wapoos with little baguettes and a beret, and they were really cute. And when I got there, the organizers actually pulled me aside, and they were like, we use the same company. We went through the same thing. We saved one for you because we thought you would like to have one because it was just such a weird and interesting experience that I went through.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh, well, like, but going to the technical side of it, I was gonna ask, like, so you've been watching, you spoke at WordCamps, and then you've been watching how WordPress and WordCamp and WordPress communities has evolved, and also the platform changed and adapted to new sites and the content publisher over the years.
Yeah.
What's your experience on that, and is there any thoughts on that end?
I think that everything has to grow and develop, and watching WordPress literally come from a blogging platform to an enterprise content management solution in the time that I've been in my career has been super exciting. I have had the pleasure at Agency Life and also at VIP of working with some really impressive customers along the way. And so to see places like NASA adopt WordPress, places like the White House, and just a number of interesting customers, tons of publishers that we get to work with that are utilizing WordPress as a content management system is really incredible to see. And if you think about it, it makes sense how we got here. One of the things that WordPress has always been really good at is content creation. So it would make sense for it to show up in the publishing space as the CMS of choice. Right? You know, we always talk about the statistic that WordPress powers 43% of the internet, but I think that that's such a powerful testament to how people are seeing this being able to use to get content out quickly, efficiently, securely, and also accurately.
Yeah, well, since that recently, I think I was hearing about 40%, but someone actually correct me. I said, no, it's like 40 to 60%. That's great. I mean, I'm sure that it's actually the bigger number then, because I think when we looked at 40 or 40%, might have been like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it changes, right? From year to year, we're going to see things change. But in my role, I'm seeing WordPress go up against the best enterprise content management solutions every day. And I think that that is a huge progress in what we've made over, since I started in 2000.
Yeah, especially when like there's different content types rolled out. It's like you just kind of open up the gate of like all this different possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, cool. So you work closely with agency partners at WordPress VIP.
Yep.
How do you see the relationship between VIP and development agencies change to better support media companies or companies in general?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think that we've all seen the golden era, right? Where leads were coming in and everybody was doing really well. I mean, I remember right after the pandemic, 2022 being a great year, 2018 like being a great year. They were all great years. But I think what we're seeing now, and I think that this is true across the board in the field with any partnerships, is that being collaborative and going in together to work with the customer is the only way to actually move forward. You need all the pieces in place. You need the agency. You need somebody like VIP. You might even need tech partners to step up to create a comprehensive solution for that particular customer. And working independently, we're only able to answer maybe a piece. But as we bring all these groups together, now we have this powerful team engaged to work with the customer to offer them a solution. And this is where I see it really being really interesting when we're competing with other solutions that are, great solutions like Adobe Experience Manager or Sitecore. These are fantastic options. But now WordPress has this ability to, match them really apples for apples in what we're doing when we collaborate with these partnerships and kind of work with customers together. So now more than ever, I think we need to think of ourselves as less being in separate silo, but more being the full answer for what a customer needs and is necessary for them to move forward.
I think that kind of like supplements my next question is like you work with both agency side and then now at WordPress VIP. What technical roadblocks do you most often see when media companies or other enterprise companies scale their WordPress sites? And what advice would you give them?
Everybody's going to have an interesting and unique situation that is like very subject to them and what they're experiencing. I will see things come up like performance, security, how to enact a proper subscription-based model into their website. And also one thing that we keep talking about is just collaboration from your content creators too, in getting them to be able to collaborate in a way that will mimic that of what the old school newsrooms does, right? So you have somebody who is writing, and then you have somebody who has to edit, and somebody who has to add the photos, and then, those photos need to be attributed correctly, and who is doing the SEO content, right? So you have all these people kind of contributing. So I think that like scaling efficiently requires a few things. One is the answer is never to band-aid the legacy system that you have and just start like fixing things over and over, because you're going to get to a point where you have this beast that you can't contain and you're going to have to burn it all down and start over and modernize anyway. So one of the things that WordPress is really great at is being able to help with consolidation and modernization and creating a system that you can put in place that you can easily build with over the years and not have to band-aid. So that's also very important, right? And when we're thinking about scaling in any kind of business, one is security becomes increasingly important, but performance too. Like, how do you scale on demand? News articles will often go viral. This is not a new thing. So how do you have something in the back end handling that for you when you do get really popular? We shared a great case study basically on our main website about times.com making Taylor Swift like the cover. And what happened on that day that went live. These things are not unique occurrences anymore, thanks to things like social media and, just blogs and Reddit and all of these things. Things will pick up speed and go viral. So you need to be able to handle the additional boost of traffic when that comes out. So having a platform like VIP, and this is not a plug, but this is truly what I do day in and day out, is having something like VIP in the background, being able to help make that possible. So when the time comes, you are prepared and you're always going to look good, because there's nothing worse than having downtime during a historic event that you are right. And for people in media and journalism right now, we are living through unprecedented times. There is something major happening literally every week, right? It's like, what's going to happen this week? So you need to be able to really account for that, and you need to be able to stay secure. I mentioned subscription-based modeling too, because I think that that's also important, right? How you're engaging consumers and giving them premium content and making sure that you have a fan base that wants to kind of come back to your publication and stay active and engaged with what you're doing. So that becomes increasingly important as well. And then finally, and I'll reiterate on that, collaboration. So having your editorial team being able to have all the tools that they need to get the news out as quickly as possible, because that's the other thing. Once something happens, you have such a short window to get that online. And so you need to have a system in place that makes sure that that happens quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, and then it goes back to what you're talking about before, that you have to have all the teams in place to kind of help to achieve that together, because it's not just going to be like one team that's going to be working to make that happen.
Absolutely. Exactly. There are always going to be multiple parties and multiple teams that are working behind the scenes for a very common goal.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So looking ahead, what tech development or industry shift do you think will shake things up for digital publisher in the next year or two?
I mean, everyone's going to talk about AI, right? Like that's going to be the first thing that everyone says. But I think that there's a larger story with AI that I'm finding very interesting, where people are starting, well, none, they're not starting. This has been happening. That's not really fair to me for me to say, but if we're using Chat GPT or any of those AI services, Claude, whatever, Perplexity, whatever you're using as a search engine, how does that change how we create content? And to me, I think that that's the bigger question. It's not, yes, we want to make sure that AI is enabled within our websites and we're using it for a cool and creative way. But I think the bigger question is then how do you disseminate the information or the content that you are creating back into the AI world? And so that has been really interesting for me to watch, like being able to make your website efficient enough to be crawled by AI bots.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's still a lot of open questions on like, security or credibility and all these other things. And then like people's premature fear of replacing jobs. It could be possible in like, next whatever years, but still at this point, it's not perfect and it still needs some human provision to kind of like work together. So how to effectively using it is more important than fear of using it and not using it, or just kind of like how to use it.
I mean, absolutely. I watch, my partner's kids when they're here pull up their phone. If I ask them a question, they're like, let me just ask ChatGPT. I mean, that is their search engine now. Like that is how they think about everything. We were having an argument yesterday about Dolly Parton and where the song Jolene came from. And, within 3 seconds, both of them were on ChatGPT trying to find the answer. And I always find it interesting that they go to ChatGPT before something like Google now. I mean, that is their reality at 10 and 14.
Yeah.
So it's weird to me.
Did they get the same answer or did they get the different answers?
Same answer. Same answer. In fact, I'll let you into this little story. I said it was the name Jolene came from a bank teller that her husband was flirting with. My partner said it was from a 10-year-old girl that she had met backstage one time whose name was Jolene. So we were like, no, I'm right. Right? So the kids immediately are on ChatGPT, pull up the answer. It's both. It was actually both. She met a 10-year-old girl whose name was Jolene, and it was based on a bank teller that her husband had been talking to, and she named that bank teller Jolene. So it was a combination of both stories, and they had the answer in 2 seconds? Less than 2 seconds? Yeah. So it was actually really funny to see that was what impressed me, is that their immediate inclination was to use AI and not go to Google, which is something that I would do.
Yeah, that's different now. I mean, like I was actually I starting to see that even for like not from the kids, but from like the peers or like other people that will go to the AI, whatever of their choice, prop or whatever, but they just kind of like put that in because it's faster.
Yeah, it's faster.
It's much faster, but like, and also you can kind of gear towards your preference on like some of the things that you do.
Yeah, but it also reduces decision fatigue, right? Because if you search on Google, you're getting like a list of answers.
Yeah.
We don't actually want that. We just want the answer. Yeah. So whatever is like served up to us from AI is what we're going to lean towards believing, right? Like that's just how it goes. So that leads me back to my point about saying, like, how as a reputable media agency or organization are you ensuring that your content gets delivered back to these results on something like ChatGPT in a way that's making sure that people are getting the right content?
Yeah, that's very interesting. One of the things that I recently was thinking about is like, when would the ads come into the AI world? Because like I know
Yes.
some platforms that kind of do like little ads on the side, but that's not really blended into the search result.
Yes,
And I feel like
exactly.
it's gonna come in, and I was like, I'm kind of curious how that's gonna play out.
Yeah, that's actually a great question because that is, I think, another thing that's really beautiful about using AI is that you aren't served up advertisements, right? And so that's really nice. It helps. I love TikTok, I'll admit it. I'm a grown woman and I'm very addicted to TikTok, but I will admit that. But it used to be so much better when they didn't have TikTok shop and all the ads. You could just scroll through this algorithm and it was serving you up things that you were interested in.
Mhm.
And now it's like add,
Yeah,
shop, add, shop. And it's still things I'm interested in, but it's not as fun as exciting now because they're trying to get me to engage in a way that I don't want to engage. And I
right.
think that's the beauty in AI.
All right. Well, this has been really fun. I was resourceful, and I didn't know about a lot of things about you. Learned for the first time. Uh, yeah. So, is there anything you want to promote or anything that you want to mention that I forgot to mention?
Well, I will say, and I think that this is really important, that it is an honor and pleasure to work with you and Endeavor as a partner. You've been fantastic, and we're thrilled to have you as an agency partner in VIP. So, truly thank you for everything. And I'm very excited to see how you do with this podcast and where it goes. It's going to be very cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested in connecting or talking more, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free. You could search my name. It's very easy. There's only one, Jodie, Jodie, Fiorenza, Fiorenza. And I'd be happy to chat and talk more about what's happening within WordPress, within VIP, within tech in general.
All right. Thanks for your time. This was exciting.
Thank you. This has been great. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jody.
Okay.